Hello and welcome to this special show. We have with us right here Mr. Kamal Nath, Commerce and Industry Minister, to talk about what else? The crisis. So we've got Mr. Kamal Nath here with me. Thank you very much. How can you reassure our viewers, investors, corporates about the way India is reacting, that is not necessarily the right way?
Well, in a globalized world where financial markets are not interdependent but interconnected, where trade is not interdependent but interconnected, India's strong fundamentals and resilience, which has been adequately demonstrated. We've seen over the last 6-7 months the best practices really collapsing in the United States and in the Western economies. But in India, our indices have been very strong. Our indices have been very strong.
Not anymore.
No. Let me tell you, frame it correctly. The indices have been correct in the sense, if we look at our ratios, if we look at the ingredients which make our growth, if we talk about strong fundamentals, it's the ingredients of those strong fundamentals. Our banking sector, much above Basel norms. You know, our banks are much, its capitalization, where Basel norms is about 8, we are somewhere around between 10 and 15. Right. In isolated case, it may be 9. Our stock exchange regulatory framework, all these are very sound. If we look at our savings ratio towards with GDP, if we look at investment to GDP, and this demonstrated by trade flows.
Mr. Kamal Nath, it's true. What you're saying is that we do have the formula that is throwing up the right answers, but the sentiment has cracked, the confidence is pretty low in India. How can the government help in bringing that confidence back?
Well, I think you have a role to play in that also, by not painting a picture of gloom. There is in India no picture of gloom, and this sentiment and this frenzy which is being built up with the collapse of the banking system, the financial system in the United States, first one needs to understand what happened. In the United States, you had the financial system and the economy in different orbits. They never converged. In India, that's not been the case.
But does it appear that there's a sense of panic within this banking sector? There's a lack of trust between banks, less amongst the investors who are out there still watching what's happening to their stocks, for example, or for their investments or the money. So in the sense, there is a panic that's not just dependent on the media. After all, it's within the banking system too.
Well, only 2% of the people in India are concerned with stocks. The question is debt. Nobody wants to see his debt go. In the United States, it's not a return on investment, it's becoming a return of investment. In India, it's neither of these. And we must recognize that this frenzy, with this interconnection, while this interconnection in the financial markets leads to a frenzy, leads to a sentiment. And when this starts going into that frenzy, a panic starts that this is going to happen and that's going to happen, the markets are going to collapse. It's not so. No, the markets have collapsed. Why? Because of the big crisis in the United States, where, again, that shows how solid India was. Why? That the only thing they could really encash immediately were Indian securities, were Indian stocks. They could not encash anything because they were either mortgage backed or they were backed by something else. So we had $10 billion.
It's a good way to think about it, yes, and I'll elaborate with you in that, on that subject in just a bit. But some of the numbers are showing that India is slowing down, and you know it because you are seeing it within your industry, that industry has slowed down from manufacturing 10% down to less than 2%. Why are these numbers so scary?
Well, I think the index of industrial production, which we've just released today, has to be revised. We must understand that we are working on a 93-94 base, and I've given instructions today that this must be reviewed.